Hey y'all, this is Julie at Two Chicks Quilting in Ganado, Texas, and we're here today with our tips and tricks with Two Chicks. Today we are going to be talking about continuous chain piecing. I have demoed this many times before, but I know there's a lot of people, every time I demo it, they go, I've never seen that, oh my gosh, that saved me so much time. And it's hard to go back and find these videos, so that's why we're demoing it again, and we want to show you continuous chain piecing. Now, continuous chain piecing is chain piecing, but just a little step further, because you're not going to cut your threads at all during completing this block. I have used continuous chain piecing method, putting a full quilt together using my 12-inch blocks or 10-inch blocks. Putting a block itself together with all my little units. So if I have some combination units and some half square triangles and some solid pieces, and I'm putting those in together to make a block, I use continuous chain piecing. It makes it super simple to keep when you lay your block out, to keep everything in the right order, to not mix your pieces up. And it just helps you match your points a little bit better too, because you're not going to leave a lot of thread between these blocks. So I'm going to, Nicole may have to adjust the camera. What we're going to do first is I have all my blocks laid out, and I am making this block just using 2.5-inch squares to give you an example. But I have it lined out, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. I am going to take my left top, the top row, and I'm going to start stacking my pieces on top of each other. So that is going to be row 1. Row 2, I'm stacking on top of each other. That's going to be row 3. Here's row 4. Here's 3. Here's row 4. Okay? So I'm going to take the first 2 pieces of this row, of row 1, first 2, and I'm going to lay them right sides together. Now you can also, if you have room, leave it laid out and just take off of the pile. Now I like to start with a little reader, because it helps my fabric not get my thread not get all knotted up. So I am ready to go and stitch my 1/4 inch, and when I get to the end of this piece of fabric, I'm going to let that needle go off the edge of the fabric, just right off the edge of it. I don't want to stitch 3 or 4 stitches, just right off the edge of that fabric. I'm going to go to my next row, and I'm going to take 1 and 2, and I'm going to lay it over, line up my edges, go right up to my needle, cover. If you have cover available on your machine, this is the perfect time to use cover. That is where your foot comes up just a tiny bit amount, just enough to give you room to put your fabric through there. So I'm going to take 1 and 2 out of row 3, right sides together. And I'm going to stuff that right up next to my needle, and I'm going to stitch. Row 4, square 1 and 2, right sides together. Now at this point, I'm going to cut my thread, because I am through all 4 of my rows. So I am going to cut my thread now. I'm going to go back and I'm going to cut my little leader off and get it ready to go again. Now I have all my rows here ready to start my next block on each row. So I'm ready to add block 3 onto each row. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab 3. I'm going to add it right sides together. Again, going right off the edge of that fabric. Now I'm on row 2. I'm going to get my 3rd block in row 2 and add it it. Again, you don't want to leave any gaps. You want to just barely, you get that needle off the edge of your fabric and stop. Row 3, block 3. Is there anyone on here watching that has used this method?
Leanne, she says that she is so happy that you taught them this last retreat.
Yes, this is so helpful. So now I'm to the end, I'm gonna cut my thread. Now I have 3 rows, or 3 blocks in each row. Now I'm gonna add my 4th block. So here's row 1. I'm gonna add my 4th block to it. Now this does get, you know, bigger to handle if you're doing like a bunch of blocks to sew a whole quilt together. But trust me, you can do it because it does help you keep your pieces a little straighter and a little more organized.
I feel like with this method, you're not ripping out because you turned your block or you have square triangles.
It helps you not flip your pieces as much. Because we do that, you know, we pick them up and by the time we get to the sewing machine, we've turned them around and we sew the wrong side or something. So it makes it a lot easier to keep things together and organized. Okay, I've got all of my rows sewn together. And so now I have my rows here. So my rows are sewn together and I'm ready to sew my rows together to each other. So I'm going to move my pressing mat over here. And this is what I do. I like to press before I get started. But, like with anything, when you piece together, you need to press these seams opposite of one another so that you are going to be able to nest your seams. So, we're going to take this first row and I'm just going to press to the left, to one direction. It doesn't matter which way you start, and get it started. Now, what I like to do is just press each row, and you can kind of pull your blocks, and if it's not perfect, it's okay, because when you sew these rows together, it's going to be a little easier. So now we're going to do this next one. Now, could you say, okay, I know I need all of these to go this way? Yes, you can, and if your blocks are big enough, it's not that hard, but just be careful you're gonna not catch the one below it and press it the opposite way that you want it to. So, if you aren't a presser, I have done this, especially if I'm in a hurry and I'm just throwing some stuff together. I have done this without pressing. So it is possible, but it is easier, and you do have a better outcome if you do press. Okay, now I'm just gonna touch this one top, this one. Okay, so now we're ready to sew our rows together. So now when I flip those right sides together, my seams nest really well. Now if I was sewing bigger blocks, I might put some pins in here in each intersection. But that is gonna hold it together, so it's not really, doesn't have room to shift on you. So you don't really have to pin especially if you're using small blocks, you're just piecing a block together. A lot of times that helps me from having to pin. So I'm not going to pin, but I am going to get a feel on that, and I'm going to make sure that seam is nested, it's not overlapped, and it's not separating. Okay, so you'll see that your sides line up really well doing this. And I'm going to do just like before. I started with a leader. I'm going to get to that seam and I'm going to stop and adjust my next seam. Once I'm done, I can cut my thread, cut my little leader off. Now, I have this one sewn together. So at this point, I'm probably going to go ahead and press to, I'm going to use my fabric folding pin at this point so that I get a good crisp press here. Going to fold over my next seam that needs to be sewn together. Line up my edges. Now, if you've never used the fabric folding pin or the precision press pin, easy press pin, these are great. You see what I'm doing? I'm just finger pressing this. I could just go on and keep sewing and not even have to hit it with my iron head, because it does give you a really good seam or press on your seam. I did flip one of my seams, but it's okay.
We're not zooming in.
This is just a sample, so I would go back and fix that if that was a look. I can fix it like that. Okay. Now we have our finished block. And let me show you how well these seams match. Or I'll let Nicole show you. So this just keeps you from getting your pieces mixed up. It gives you, it's a lot faster rather than sewing two pieces together, cutting your thread, going and sewing two more pieces and cutting your thread. It's faster, it lets you stay a little more organized. And I hope that continuous chain piecing is something that you learn how to do and use it often. So if you have any questions, let us know. We're here to help. See you later. Bye.